A fist closed around a pebble can feel like a stone, not because it is heavy, but because you won't let it go. Overthinking is like that. A small thought becomes a hard object in the palm of the mind. And Zen Koans, strange as they seem, are not here to give you a better pebble. They are here to open the hand. Take a slow breath. Feel where your mind is right now. Is it already reaching for an answer? Is it already arranging this moment into a problem it must solve? Overthinking often pretends to be wisdom. It wears the robe of responsibility. It speaks with the voice of, "I'm just trying to understand." But underneath, it is usually a subtle fear. A fear of being wrong. A fear of losing control. A fear of feeling what you're actually feeling. Zen is gentle about this. Zen does not scold the mind for thinking. The mind thinks. That is what minds do. The suffering begins when we believe every thought deserves a courtroom, a debate, a verdict. The suffering begins when the mind turns into a committee meeting that never ends. A koan is like a small bell rung in that meeting, not to add another agenda item, but to stop the meeting altogether. You may have heard of koans as riddles, but a koan is not a puzzle meant to be solved the way a math problem is solved. It is a paradox meant to be lived. It is language used to escort you beyond language. It is a question that breaks the habit of making everything into a question. One famous koan says, "Two hands clap, and there is a sound. What is the sound of one hand?" The thinking mind rushes to answer. It tries to be clever. It tries silence. It tries wind. It tries a swoosh through the air. It tries philosophy. But the koan is not asking for a sound effect. It is asking you to meet the moment before your mind turns it into an object. It is asking you to notice the way the mind lunges, the way it grabs, the way it cannot rest. This koan is widely referenced in popular explanations of Zen koans, and their purpose is paradoxes that expose the limits of purely logical thought. And that, right there, is already medicine for overthinking. Because overthinking is not really about the topic you're thinking about. It is about the compulsion to complete the world, to close the loop, to nail down uncertainty until it stops moving. But life is movement. The moment you freeze it into certainty, you lose the living thing you were trying to hold. Notice this moment. You are here. Your breath is happening without your permission. Your heart is beating without a plan. The body is already wise in a way the mind forgets. Zen koans are like keys made of mist. When you try to hold them tightly, they vanish. When you relax, the door is suddenly not a door. Another famous koan begins with a simple question about a dog and Buddha nature, and the master answers with one syllable, mu. Not yes, not no, not an explanation, just mu. In many Western tellings, this is framed as a doorway into direct experience rather than conceptual debate. The koan appears as the first case in the collection known as the Gateless Barrier, also called the Gateless Gate, a classic anthology of koans. Now, let's be very human together. When you are overthinking, you might secretly be saying, "If I think long enough, I can make pain disappear." Or, "If I think long enough, I can guarantee I won't regret my choice." Or, "If I rehearse every possibility, I will not be surprised by life." But life is surprise. So what does a koan do? It doesn't remove uncertainty. It removes your addiction to certainty. It doesn't give you control. It gives you contact. It doesn't hand you an answer. It hands you back your own awareness. Imagine you are walking at night with a lantern. Overthinking is when you keep polishing the glass of the lantern, adjusting the wick, checking the oil, rereading the instructions, while never taking a step forward. Zen says, yes, the lantern matters, but you are not here to perfect lanterns. You are here to walk. Take a slow breath. Feel how many times your mind wants to interrupt this breath with commentary. Am I doing it right? Is this working? What if this doesn't help? Overthinking even overthinks peace. So let's move into a story. A quiet one. There is a small mountain temple, the kind with wooden floors worn smooth by bare feet. In the morning, mist sits low in the pines. A bell rings. Somewhere, water is heating. A student has come to this temple with a mind like a storm in a jar. They are polite. They bow. They do everything correctly. But inside, their thoughts are sharp and fast. They sit with the teacher and say, "My mind won't stop. I think about my past. I think about my future. I think about what people think of me. I think about what I should have done. I think about what I should do." It never ends. The teacher listens. The teacher does not look shocked. The teacher does not say, "Just be mindful," the way someone might say, "Just calm down," to a drowning person. Instead, the teacher pours tea. The tea falls in a thin stream into the cup. The sound is soft. The cup fills. The teacher keeps pouring. The tea rises. It trembles at the rim. It spills onto the table. It spills onto the floor. The student stiffens. They want to stop it. They want to fix it. They want to explain why the cup is overflowing. The teacher looks up and says, "This is your mind." And in that moment, something becomes obvious without anyone arguing about it. The student does not need a lecture about mental habits. They can see it. They can hear it. They can smell the tea. They can feel the embarrassment in their body. The teaching is not an idea. It is an experience. This is what koans do. They spill the tea. Overthinking is often a mind that is overfilled with itself. Too many stories. Too many rehearsals. Too many invisible battles. Koans do not ask you to win those battles. Koans ask you to notice the battlefield is made of smoke. There is another well-known Zen story about two monks arguing about a flag. One says the flag is moving. Another says the wind is moving. A third says the mind is moving. This story is often shared as a way to point toward perception itself rather than the object being perceived. If you overthink, you know this feeling. You stare at something simple, an email, a text message, a small decision, and suddenly it is not simple. The flag becomes a philosophy. The wind becomes a threat. Your mind becomes a courtroom again. Zen gently asks, what is actually moving? Is the world truly so complicated? Or is the mind adding layers like blankets on a warm day, sweating under comfort it doesn't need? Take a slow breath. Let the shoulders drop. Let the jaw soften. You do not have to solve your life in this moment. You only have to live it. Now let's talk about practical use. Because a koan is not just something you admire from a distance. It is something you carry the way you carry a smooth stone in your pocket. Not to weigh you down, to remind you to return. Here is the first practice, simple enough to do anywhere. When you catch yourself overthinking, don't argue with the thought. Don't shame yourself. Don't try to bulldoze your way into silence. Instead, offer the mind a koan-like turn, something that cannot be completed by analysis. You can use a traditional koan if it resonates, like, what is the sound of one hand? Or you can use a koan-shaped question that is gentle and present-focused, such as, right now, what is missing? Not as a trick, as a way to interrupt the trance of problem solving. Overthinking feeds on the belief that the next thought will be the final one. The mind keeps running because it expects a finish line. A koan removes the finish line. It leaves you in the open field of awareness. When you ask, what is the sound of one hand? The mind tries to sprint. It fails. It returns, confused. And in that confusion, there is space. In that space, you can feel your breath again. You can feel your feet again. You can feel the room again. So the koan is not the answer. The koan is the pause. And the pause is everything. Here is the second practice. Notice the body's overthinking signature. Overthinking is not only thoughts. It is also tension. It is a tight throat, a clenched belly, a forehead that never fully relaxes. When you see the mind spiraling, bring attention to one physical sensation. Not to fix it, to be with it. Koans work because they bring you out of the head and into direct contact with experience. In the same way, when you return to sensation, you are stepping out of the mind's endless hallway of doors. Take a slow breath. Notice the temperature of the air as it enters the nostrils. Notice the small pause at the end of the inhale. Notice the quiet surrender of the exhale. That exhale is a teacher. It does not force. It releases. Here is the third practice. And it may be the most compassionate of all. Ask yourself softly, what am I trying not to feel? Overthinking often looks like planning, but it can be a way of avoiding grief, or loneliness, or anger, or tenderness, or the simple ache of being human. A koan does not let you escape into strategy. A koan invites you into immediacy. Imagine you are holding a glass of water. You stare at it and think, what is the best way to hold it? What angle should my wrist be? What if I spill? What if someone laughs? What if the glass breaks? Meanwhile, your hand is already holding it. The water is already water. The simplest reality is already functioning. Overthinking is when you keep asking permission to live. Zen does not grant permission. Zen points. It says, look, you are alive. So let's return to mu for a moment. Mu is often described as a negation that is not merely no, but a refusal of the question's framing, a kind of unask rather than an answer. Different traditions explain it differently, but the core invitation is to step out of the binary mind that demands yes or no, right or wrong, safe or unsafe, solved or unsolved. The collection it appears in is literally called the gateless barrier, suggesting the obstacle is not a real gate but our way of seeing. Overthinking loves binaries because binaries feel controllable. If I can label it, I can manage it. If I can define it, I can dominate it. But life does not fit neatly into two boxes. The heart does not speak in spreadsheets. So, when you are caught, you can whisper mu to yourself, not as a magic word, as a gentle reminder. Maybe the mind is asking the wrong question. Maybe the question itself is the trap. What if I fail? Mu. What if they don't like me? Mu. What if I choose wrong? Mu. Not meaning, I don't care, but meaning, I release the false frame that says my worth depends on a perfect prediction. Take a slow breath. Feel the relief that can come when you stop prosecuting your own existence. Now, the emotional resolution. This is where the story turns from understanding to feeling. Because the mind can understand Zen and still overthink. The mind can quote koans and still spiral at 2 a.m. So we go deeper. We go softer. There is a quiet heartbreak inside overthinking. It is the belief that this moment is not enough, that you must earn your peace through mental labor, that rest is a reward for solving everything. Zen offers a different kindness. It says peace is not a trophy. Peace is your nature, covered temporarily by clouds. The clouds do not need to be fought. They need to be seen. Koans are not weapons against thoughts. They are lanterns. They show you what the mind is doing without demanding you hate the mind for doing it. So if you overthink, let me say this plainly, there is nothing wrong with you. Your mind learned a strategy to survive. It learned to scan, to predict, to prepare. Somewhere along the line, it forgot how to stop. That forgetting is not a moral failure. It is a habit, and habits can be softened. Imagine sitting by a window during gentle rain. At first, you name every drop. You track every pattern. You analyze the sound. But eventually, if you simply listen, the rain becomes one living texture. You stop counting. You start receiving. This is the shift koans invite. They invite you to stop counting and start receiving. Take a slow breath. Notice this moment again. The sounds around you. The weight of your body. The small, ordinary miracle of being here. Now, let's bring it into daily life, where overthinking likes to ambush you. Overthinking often arrives in three places: before action, after action, and in imagined action. Before you send the message, you rewrite it 15 times. After you speak, you replay it all night. In imagined action, you live conversations that never happen and feel emotions you never needed to carry. A koan can be placed like a small stone at the entrance of those loops. Before action, when your mind says, I must choose perfectly, you can sit with, what is the sound of one hand? Let the mind fail to solve it. Let the nervous system feel the open space. Then take one simple step. Not perfect, real. After action, when your mind says, I shouldn't have, you can sit with mu. Not to deny responsibility, but to stop the unnecessary self-punishment that keeps the wound open. Learn what you can. Apologize if needed. Then release the replay. In imagined action, when your mind creates 10 futures and panics in all of them, you can ask, right now, what is actually happening? Feel your breath. Feel your hands. Feel the chair beneath you. Return to what is true. Zen is not asking you to become empty-headed. Zen is asking you to become present-hearted. And there is a quiet strength in that. Because presence does not depend on good outcomes. Presence is stable even when life is not. Now, I want to offer one more story, a very simple one, because simple stories can travel farther into the heart than complex theories. A person walks through a forest path at dusk. They hear a twig snap behind them. Their mind immediately builds a movie, a threat, a chase, a tragedy. Their body tightens. Their breath shortens. Their eyes widen. They turn. It is only a deer, a gentle animal, pausing, listening, then stepping away into the brush. The danger was not in the forest. It was in the imagination. Overthinking is often like this. A sound happens. A sensation happens. A memory happens. And the mind makes a movie so fast it feels like reality. Koans slow the projector. They interrupt the film. What is the sound of one hand? The movie stops. Just for a second. And in that second, you see the deer. Just a deer. Just a moment. Just life. Take a slow breath. Let your nervous system learn this new pattern. Uncertainty is not always danger. This is a very tender training. It takes time. Some days you will remember. Some days you will forget. Forgetting is not failure. Forgetting is part of learning. Each time you remember, you are building a new home inside yourself. Now we arrive at the closing reflection. The last part is not about gaining a technique. It is about leaving with a feeling of quiet empowerment, a feeling that you can meet your mind with warmth, not war. Zen koans are not here to confuse you for sport. They are here to help you see the moment before you tighten, before you grip, before you turn life into something you must win. The mind will still think. Thoughts will still rise. But you can learn to hold them like clouds, not like stones. You can learn to let them pass through the wide sky of awareness without building a house inside each one. And when you catch yourself overthinking tonight, or tomorrow morning, or next week in a crowded place, you can do something small and sacred. You can pause. You can breathe. You can touch the edge of a koan like touching cool water. What is the sound of one hand? Moo. Not as answers. As doorways. Not as weapons. As openings. Not to make you special. To make you free. Take one more slow breath. Feel gratitude for the mind that tried so hard to protect you. Feel gratitude for your own willingness to begin again. Even now. Especially now. Today, may you find peace in simply being.